The cold drizzle blurred the glass as Lauren stood frozen in her kitchen, coffee cup trembling in her hand. On her phone screen, a viral video played, a teenager in a hoodie helping a homeless man. For one breathless second, the boy looked up. Lauren dropped the cup. It was him. Lauren Haynes, 45, once known as Portland's most meticulous legal archivist, had cataloged everything except the one truth that shattered her. Her son vanished 17 years ago. No trace, no goodbye, but she never forgot the way his left eyebrow twitched when he was nervous. That's what she just saw. Before the story begins, comment your city or country below and don't forget to hit the like button to show your support. We want to hear from you. Lauren Haynes lived in patterns, neat, quiet, and controlled. Her small apartment in Northeast Portland overlooked a row of birch trees that turned golden every October, the same month her world had ended. Each morning, she brewed coffee precisely at 6:45 a.m., always 2 sugars, no cream. She walked to the Portland Public Archives, where she worked 3 days a week, meticulously restoring and digitizing old court records, legal affidavits, and case logs dating back a century. She liked paper more than people. Paper didn't lie. Paper didn't vanish. To the world, she was simply the quiet woman with kind eyes and tucked away sadness, her long brown hair now streaked with gray. She wore muted sweaters and sensible shoes. Her coworkers appreciated her discipline and attention to detail, but few ever asked about her past. Fewer still dared mention the name that lived inside every heartbeat she had. Tyler. 17 years ago, her 6-year-old son disappeared after school. It was a Friday. It was raining. He had begged to walk the 2 blocks home on his own just once. She said yes. That moment never stopped replaying in her head. After his disappearance, everything unraveled. Her marriage collapsed, her work suffered, friends withdrew, unsure of what to say or how to help. And eventually the world moved on. Only she didn't. In private, Lauren never stopped searching. Her home was filled with printed forum threads, news clippings, and storage boxes labeled with years and states. She had files on every unidentified child found in the U.S. since 2000. Every year on Tyler's birthday, she donated blood to keep her DNA in the National Missing Persons Database. She had learned to live around the pain like a tree growing around metal. Still breathing, still reaching toward the sun, but never the same. Only one person had remained by her side, David Knox, a former detective turned private investigator. They weren't lovers. They weren't quite friends. But there was an unspoken bond between them, built on loss, endurance, and the quiet pursuit of answers. Every now and then he would show up at her door with coffee and a new article or theory. Most of the time it led nowhere, but it kept her from falling into silence. Lauren didn't go to church anymore, or therapy, or any support groups. She didn't believe healing came from words. Instead, she found solace in old records and quiet corners, places where facts lived untouched by memory. But something inside her had shifted recently. A quiet urgency, a whisper she couldn't explain. It started the morning she saw the video. Portland was not the same city it had been 17 years ago. The quirky charm that once drew families and artists had grown heavier, more transient, more guarded. Coffee shops still lined the streets, and bookstores spilled into alleyways with handwritten signs. But something colder moved beneath the surface now, a weariness Lauren understood all too well. Back then, she and her husband had chosen this city for its safety and community. Tyler had loved the Saturday market, especially the balloon man who twisted animals from thin rubber and laughter. It was the last place Lauren remembered seeing her son truly carefree. Now, Portland felt like a ghost town of memories she couldn't outrun. Every street held shadows. Every park bench might be the one he'd sat on. Every child's laughter in the distance came with a momentary ache, a flicker of what could have been. Lauren's apartment was functional, sparse, and meticulously ordered. Not because she lacked sentiment, but because memories had weight, and she had long ago learned that some weights you choose to carry, and some you bury deep under structure. A single framed photo of Tyler sat on her kitchen shelf, taken 3 weeks before he disappeared. It was the only photograph she hadn't boxed away. After his disappearance, Lauren had become an expert on what the city could and could not do. She learned that law enforcement resources dried up quickly when a case went cold. She learned how news cycles forgot children not found within the first 72 hours. and she learned how loneliness became a second skin, one you wore even in daylight. But Lauren was never helpless. She adapted. She became her own archivist, investigator, and advocate. She rebuilt her career around her strengths: data, patterns, research. While others sought closure, Lauren sought facts. Truth was the only comfort left to her. By day, she was the calm voice cataloging court testimonies from the 1950s. By night, she pored over archived security footage, read outdated police reports, and followed message boards for sightings and missing persons. Outside, the city moved on. Buses groaned, neon signs buzzed, and teenagers scrolled their lives away. But Lauren stayed rooted in stillness, waiting for something, anything, to shift. She didn't know it yet, but the shift was already in motion. And it would begin, not in a courtroom or on a police scanner, but in a grainy 30-second video shot by a college student in a part of town she rarely visited. It would begin with a face she hadn't seen in 17 years. It started like most things do now, with a notification. Lauren wasn't much of a social media user, but she kept one anonymous account on Reddit, mainly to monitor forums dedicated to missing persons. That morning, a post had been flagged in a group she followed. Teen helps unhoused veteran. What he does next will break your heart. She almost scrolled past it, but something, maybe the word teen, maybe the still image of the boy reaching down with outstretched hands, made her pause. She clicked. The video was only 34 seconds long, grainy and handheld. A young man in a gray hoodie knelt beside an older man outside a bus station. He offered him a meal, helped him stand, then hugged him. The crowd clapped softly in the background. It was touching, viral, harmless. Until the camera angle shifted just for a moment and the boy turned toward the lens. Lauren felt her breath stop. It wasn't just the boy's face. It was the flick of his fingers as he pushed the hair from his eyes, the exact way Tyler used to do. It was his lopsided smile, the nervous bite of his bottom lip, his walk, his eyes. Her heart knew before her brain could catch up. It was him. Her fingers fumbled as she paused the video, rewound, paused again, screenshot the frame. Her breathing came in shallow waves. She zoomed in until the pixels blurred into noise, but still, she knew. Mothers know. She played it again. And again. The video had been uploaded by someone named @MatthewCollegeKid with a location tag that said Downtown Bus Terminal, Old Town, Portland. Less than 4 miles away. Lauren's mind raced. She hadn't had a lead in years, not a real one. And now this boy, who looked 17 or 18, who moved just like Tyler, who felt familiar down to his shadow, was here, in her city, on her screen. She didn't know his name. She didn't know where he came from or where he went next. But something in her shifted, like ice cracking beneath pressure. She printed out the frame and pinned it above her desk. Then she started digging. Lauren didn't sleep that night. She sat cross-legged on her living room floor, surrounded by open laptops, scribbled notes, and printed screenshots of the video. She watched the clip over 50 times, memorizing every motion, every person in the background, every visible storefront. She traced the username. @MatthewCollegeKid led to a small Instagram account belonging to Matthew Reese, a sophomore at Portland State University. Public profile. Environmental science major, frequent poster. His bio included a link to a vlog series on YouTube called Everyday Kindness. She clicked through the thumbnails until she found the original video. Homeless outreach, hug that changed my week. The comments were flooded with praise. Lauren read everyone, searching for a clue. In the background of the video, she identified a boarded-up bookstore, Easton's Books and Vinyl, which had closed 3 years earlier. The bench they sat on, the traffic behind them, even the rusted bike rack all confirmed the location, SBU 5th and Jefferson, just a few blocks from an old community center that offered volunteer programs for at-risk youth. Lauren checked the center's website. They had a photography workshop and a meal prep group, both popular with teens. She picked up the phone and called. "Hi, I'm a writer researching a piece on community programs and came across a video shot nearby. I'm wondering if you could tell me about any student volunteers you've had recently, particularly boys, maybe 17 or 18? The receptionist hesitated. "We get a lot of volunteers, ma'am. Is there a name you're looking for?" "I'm not sure," Lauren said carefully. "I think his name might be Elliot." It was a guess. She remembered a comment on the video. "Elliot is a gem, always showing up for folks." There was a pause. Then, yes, Elliot comes in twice a week, usually Tuesdays and Fridays. Quiet kid, good heart, helps in the kitchen. Lauren scribbled it all down, masking the tremor in her voice. Would it be possible to stop by? I'd love to meet him for the story I'm working on. The receptionist agreed to check with her supervisor. Lauren hung up and stared at the scrap of paper where she'd written the name, Elliot. She said it out loud, testing the weight of it on her tongue. It didn't feel like a stranger's name. It felt borrowed, a name worn over the truth like an old coat pulled over a childhood never fully remembered. She didn't know what she would say when she saw him, but she would be there on Tuesday. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss the most haunting, real-life inspired stories we uncover. October 13th, 2000. It was a Friday. The kind of crisp fall day that felt like a postcard. Golden leaves crunching underfoot, the smell of rain and wood smoke in the air. Lauren remembered every detail, not because she wanted to, but because her mind had preserved that day with brutal clarity. Tyler was 6 years old, curious, a little shy, obsessed with dinosaurs and peanut butter sandwiches. That morning, he wore his favorite red hoodie, the one with the worn-out zipper and the tiny T-Rex embroidered on the sleeve. She packed his lunch, tied his shoes, and kissed the top of his head, just like every other school day. He was in first grade at Chapman Elementary, a 15-minute walk from their home. Lauren usually picked him up at the side entrance near the crossing guard station. But that Friday, Tyler had asked if he could walk home by himself. Just once, like the big kids. She hesitated, then agreed. I'll wait on the porch, she had said. He beamed at her, that huge smile missing his front tooth. I'll be home before you can count to 1,000. Lauren stood on the porch that afternoon, waiting and waiting. At 3:10 p.m., the bell rang. At 3:15, the sidewalk stayed empty. By 3:25, she was running, first to the school, then around the block. By 4, the police had been called. The investigation started immediately. Dozens of officers canvassed the area, helicopters flew overhead. Dogs traced his scent to the alley beside the school near the recycling bins, and then it vanished. One child, a fourth grader named Maxie Thompson, said he saw a man talking to Tyler near the alleyway. The man had gray hair, wore a brown jacket, and smelled like bleach. But the child's story changed under pressure, and no other witnesses came forward. There were no ransom notes, no sightings. No evidence of a struggle, just an absence. Clean and quiet and irreversible. Lauren spent the first 48 hours without sleep, answering questions, reviewing security footage, retracing every step. She believed he was alive. She had to. Over the next weeks, flyers went up all across Portland. Her voice cracked in TV interviews. Her face became a fixture in the news. Tips poured in, none credible. One woman claimed she saw Tyler at a gas station in Salem. Another swore he was with a couple in Montana. All false. By December, the case had gone cold. The police assured her they were doing everything they could, but she could hear it in their voices. He was gone. Lauren never accepted it. She couldn't. Every year, she held a vigil on that street corner. Every year, fewer people showed up, and every year she lit a candle and whispered, "Come home." She never changed her phone number, never left Portland, and every night, before bed, she looked at the same photo on her nightstand. Tyler, age 6, laughing in mid-spin, as if frozen between one breath and the next. In the months following Tyler's disappearance, Lauren transformed from grieving mother to relentless investigator. She kept meticulous notes, times, locations, witness inconsistencies. She created spreadsheets, cross-referenced missing children databases, and read psychological profiles of abductors. Her days were consumed with interviews, case studies, and knocking on doors. Her nights were haunted by the silence of Tyler's empty room. Her husband Peter tried to hold on, but grief fractured them in different directions. He sought closure. She sought answers. A year later, he moved to Seattle, remarried, and eventually stopped responding to her emails. Lauren stayed. By 2003, she had become a fixture in the missing persons community, though not always welcomed. Some thought her obsessive. Others admired her discipline. A few thought she should let go. She ignored them all. One person, however, saw something else. Detective David Knox. He was in his late 40s when they first met, a seasoned investigator from another district who attended one of the regional conferences on child abduction. Lauren, by then, had gained a reputation for her detailed casework. Knox was impressed and quietly disturbed by how often her research matched his own conclusions. He invited her to coffee. Over time, coffee turned into working lunches, then joint visits to families of the missing, then weekend drives to follow up leads that no one else would chase. Knox had seen the system fail too many times. He knew how stretched departments were, how easy it was for a child to vanish if no one kept asking questions. But Lauren never stopped asking. When he retired in 2014, he didn't quit. He just started working with her more often. Unpaid, unofficial, but fully committed. He was her compass when grief blurred her vision, her grounding force when hope spiraled into obsession. They never spoke of love. There wasn't space for it. But there was trust, and in Lauren's world, that was more sacred than anything else. Now, as she sat at her desk staring at the image of Elliot from the video, Lauren texted him one line, "Need you Tuesday. Bring camera. Might be something." He replied in minutes, "If it's who you think it is, we're not walking away this time." Lauren leaned back in her chair and exhaled slowly. This time, it felt different. Tuesday came like thunder behind glass. Lauren dressed with care, not to impress, but to steady herself. Neutral tones, clean lines, no perfume. She didn't want to overwhelm him. She just wanted to see him again. No. The community center was modest, nestled between a shuttered laundromat and a payday loan shop. Inside, the scent of tomato soup drifted from a kitchen down the hall. Voices echoed faintly. Laughter, clanging silverware, someone humming off-key. She signed in with a pen that barely worked, scrawling a false last name. Beside her, David Knox adjusted the lens on a discreet body cam clipped to his jacket. He'd promised to keep his distance unless she gave the signal. "He's on kitchen duty," the receptionist said with a smile. "You'll know him when you see him. He's got kind eyes." Lauren's pulse was a drumbeat in her throat as she stepped into the kitchen. And then, he was there. Back turned, sleeves rolled up, standing at the sink and rinsing a stock pot with casual ease. His hair was shorter now, darker, but the profile was unmistakable. The slope of the nose, the shape of the jaw, the way he shifted his weight from foot to foot like a boy trying to stay still but failing. "Elliot," she said softly. He turned. And the world stopped. His eyes met hers, the same shade of green Tyler had. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, maybe. Recognition? No, too soon. "Yes?" he replied, polite but wary. Lauren blinked. Her throat caught. "Hi, I'm doing a story on youth programs and saw your video. That was you, right? Helping that veteran last week?" Elliot smiled shyly. "Yeah, kind of weird how many people saw that." "It was a good moment," she said. "You reminded me of someone." He dried his hands on a towel. "Well, happy to talk if it helps, but I don't know if I'll be interesting enough for a story." "You're more than a story," she wanted to say. Instead, "Do you remember much from when you were little?" He raised an eyebrow, a flash of guardedness. "Not really. Everything before age 6 is just blank. Foster care files say I was found alone in a park in Tacoma. No ID, no memory." Tacoma. Lauren's heart lurched. That matched a tip from 2001. A child found wandering, never identified. She'd flagged it, but it was dismissed at the time. "You ever wonder about it?" she asked. Elliot shrugged. "Sometimes, but wondering doesn't change anything, does it?" "Sometimes it does," she said. For a moment, their eyes held again, and in that space something wordless passed between them, something fragile and ancient, recognition not of the mind, but of the soul. Then the door banged open and someone called Elliot to the storeroom. "I should go," he said, offering a kind smile. Lauren nodded, holding her composure until he disappeared. She stepped outside into the wind, eyes brimming with tears. David walked up silently beside her. "Well?" he asked. Lauren's voice cracked as she whispered, "It's him." Over the next 2 weeks, Lauren returned to the community center every Tuesday and Friday, not as a mother, as a volunteer. She chopped vegetables beside Elliot in the kitchen, folded laundry in the donation room, and sorted canned goods in the basement storage. Slowly, gently, she drew out small conversations. Favorite foods, books he liked, why he flinched at loud noises but lit up around animals. He told her he'd bounced between foster homes until he was 10, then landed with a long-term guardian, a man named Richard Crane. Crane homeschooled him, never let him near computers, told him his parents had died in a car crash when he was a baby. Lauren's blood ran cold. She knew the name. Richard Crane had once been a suspect in another missing child case, a 5-year-old girl in Spokane, 1996. The case was dismissed due to lack of evidence, but Lauren had read the file. It was enough to send a chill down her spine. Now he was back, and he'd raised her son. Elliot spoke of Crane like a father, said he was distant, odd, but kind, a man of rules. They lived in a cabin outside Salem, off-grid, until Elliot turned 16. Then Crane let him attend GED classes, get a phone, join community groups, but always monitored. Lauren didn't tell him yet. Didn't say, "I'm your mother." Not until she was sure. Instead, she asked questions. "Did you ever have dreams about another family?" "Sometimes," he said. "When I was a kid, I'd dream about this house with white curtains, a porch swing, and someone calling my name. I always thought it was made up." "It might not be," Lauren said quietly. He looked at her then, longer than before. "You seem familiar," he said. "Like, I don't know, like I should know you." Lauren's breath hitched, but she smiled. "Maybe we met in another life." She left it at that. Later that night, she sat with David in her apartment, sorting through timelines, photographs, and a folder she hadn't opened in years. The Spokane Report. Inside was Richard Crane's old address, case notes, and a blurred school photo of him from 1994. Lauren stared at it, her jaw tight. "We need to know what he's hiding," she said. David nodded. "We will." But even as they planned their next move, Lauren's heart ached with new uncertainty. Because now she wasn't just chasing the truth. She was watching a boy, a young man, come to life in front of her. And every day she spent with Elliot, she saw Tyler in his gestures, his laugh, the way he furrowed his brow when thinking too hard. But she also saw someone else, someone raised by a stranger, someone who might not be ready to know who he really was. The first time Lauren saw Richard Crane in person, she felt like her lungs forgot how to work. He stepped out of a rusted silver pickup truck, the same one Elliot had described, and locked the door with a remote click. Tall, lean, white beard trimmed too neatly, a man trying to appear harmless. But there was something in his movements, precise, cautious, like a man always calculating. Lauren watched from inside David's parked car across the street. The camera on the dashboard recorded every second. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the man who raised my son." Crane entered the corner market, unaware he was being watched. David exhaled slowly. "You still want to do this?" Lauren didn't answer. Her fingers were clenched tightly in her lap. They'd spent the last week building a case. David had pulled together a report using public records and witness statements. Crane had never legally adopted Elliot. No paperwork existed tying him to the child found in Tacoma in 2001. No birth certificate, no foster agency placement, just a quiet reappearance of a missing child with a fabricated story, one the authorities had never questioned deeply. It was enough to raise suspicion, but not enough to arrest. Not yet. "We need a trigger," David said, "something that forces a confrontation without pushing Elliot away." Lauren nodded. She had already decided. That night, she invited Elliot for coffee. They met at a quiet bookstore cafe. Rain tapped the windows. Elliot looked tired, eyes shadowed. "I need to ask you something," she said, "and I need you to really think before you answer." He leaned in, cautious. "Okay. Have you ever felt watched? Like someone was shaping your life behind the scenes?" Elliot hesitated. "Sometimes. Crane was always watching. He said it was to protect me, but there were times I felt controlled. I never knew why." Lauren reached into her bag and slid a thin folder toward him. Inside were 2 photos, one of him, age 6, Tyler with his missing tooth and red hoodie, and the other a surveillance still from the recent video. Elliot blinked. "What is this?" "That's you. Both of them." He stared at the images. His hands trembled. Lauren spoke gently. "Your name isn't Elliot. You were born Tyler James Haynes. You disappeared when you were 6. I'm your mother." Silence fell like a stone in the room. Elliot looked up, eyes wide. What are you saying?" Lauren's voice cracked. "I've been looking for you for 17 years. Elliot pushed back in his chair, breath ragged. "This is insane." "I thought so too, until I saw you, until you spoke." He stood, unsteady. "I need to think." Lauren didn't stop him. She let him go. But she knew the truth had been planted, and it would grow. Elliot didn't return her calls for 2 days. Lauren didn't push. She knew what he was feeling. The fracturing of everything he believed, the disorientation of finding out your entire life had been built on a lie. On the 3rd night, he showed up at her apartment, soaked from the rain. eyes raw, hands in his pockets. "I want answers," he said, "and I want to hear them from him." Lauren stepped aside, heart pounding. "Then let's get them." They drove in silence. David followed in a separate car, armed with a microphone, a discreet body cam, and a legal pretext. Crane was under informal review due to false guardianship, just enough to justify a confrontation. Crane's cabin sat at the edge of a wooded bluff, a two-story wooden structure with faded shutters and a porch that looked out over the valley. As they approached, the porch light flicked on. Crane stepped outside. He saw Elliot, then he saw Lauren, and everything in his face changed. "Elliot," he said, voice cool, almost gentle. "What's going on?" "I want to know the truth," Elliot said. "Right now." Crane looked past him, his eyes locked with Lauren's, and for a moment the facade cracked. There was something reptilian in his stillness, cold calculation behind every breath. "I don't know what she's told you," Crane began. "She told me my name's not Elliot, that I was taken." Crane exhaled slow. "You were abandoned. I found you in Tacoma. No one came forward. I gave you a home." "You lied to me," Elliot said, voice rising. "Why?" "You were alone. I saved you." "No," Lauren interrupted, stepping forward. "You stole him." Crane's expression flickered with contempt. "You think a child belongs to anyone? I raised him. I fed him. I taught him to think. What did you do? Cry in your kitchen?" David stepped out of the trees. "That's enough," he said. "Mr. Crane, we've recorded this conversation. You've admitted to knowingly raising a child without legal adoption. That's kidnapping." Crane's face tightened, but he didn't run. He raised his hands, almost casually. "Then arrest me." And David did. Elliot stood frozen as the man he'd called father for over a decade was led away in handcuffs. "I never hurt you," Crane called out. "I gave you the only life you were ever going to get." Lauren touched Elliot's shoulder. He flinched, but didn't pull away. The truth was out, but the wounds had only just begun to surface. This character deserves a like, but sadly, they haven't received one yet. If their journey moved you even slightly, show it with a click. The results arrived 5 days later. Lauren stared at the envelope on her kitchen table as if it might explode. Elliot sat across from her, arms folded, jaw tense. David stood near the door, silent, watching. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Clinical. Precise. Irrefutable. Probability of maternity, 99.9999%. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just exhaled, like she had been holding her breath for 17 years. Elliot didn't speak right away. He took the paper, stared at the words, then looked at her. "So, it's real," he said. "You're really her." Lauren nodded. "Yes. And you're Tyler." He leaned back, expression unreadable. "I don't remember you." "I know," she whispered. "I feel like I should, but I don't." "That's okay." He looked at her then, not with fear, not with anger, but with something softer. Regret. Grief. A longing that had no name. "I want to remember," he said. Lauren reached across the table, slowly, cautiously, and placed her hand over his. "Then we'll remember together." For the first time, he didn't pull away. Not physically. Not emotionally. The door had opened. Richard Crane's arrest made local news, but it didn't go national. Too much time had passed. Too many questions had no clear answers. The charges stuck. Custodial interference, falsifying records, endangering the welfare of a minor. But he refused to speak further. No apology. No explanation. Elliot didn't attend the hearings. "I've heard all the lies I need," he told Lauren. "Nothing he says now will make it right." But justice, even partial, offered a strange kind of peace. Closure didn't mean completeness. It meant clarity. And sometimes clarity hurt more than mystery. Lauren was asked to speak in a support group for long-term family recovery. She declined the first few invitations. Then one night, she stood before 12 other parents and told them what no one had told her all those years ago. Don't wait for the story to end before you start healing. You don't have to choose between hope and pain. They live in the same place. Elliot kept his distance for a while. He stayed in his apartment. He walked the city alone. Sometimes he called her. Sometimes he didn't. Lauren didn't push. She simply kept showing up. Coffee left on his porch, books she remembered he liked as a child, postcards from places he once dreamed of visiting. Then one morning, he knocked on her door. "I had a memory," he said. "You were singing. In the kitchen. Something about pancakes." Lauren smiled. "I sang that every Saturday morning." Elliot nodded. "I think I remember the smell." They stood in the doorway, the silence between them no longer sharp. just full. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to our channel. It helps us continue creating deeply human, emotionally honest narratives that often go untold. Your support means everything. The first Sunday they spent together was quiet. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't talk about Richard Crane or the memories Elliot still couldn't reach. Instead, they sat on Lauren's back porch in the early light, sipping tea and watching the rain slide down the leaves. He asked if he could see old photos. She brought out the box, dusty, carefully labeled, and laid them on the table one by one. Baby pictures. First birthday, Tyler with cake on his nose. Tyler in a dinosaur costume. Tyler and Lauren on the swings at Wallace Park. Elliot stared at each image like a mirror that didn't quite reflect him. I feel like I'm reading about someone else, he said, like I'm stealing someone's story. Lauren leaned in gently. It is your story. You didn't steal it. Someone tried to erase it. That's not the same. He nodded but didn't speak. Later they cooked together. She taught him how to make the peanut butter pancakes he once loved. He added too much cinnamon. She didn't correct him. That night, he asked if he could sleep on the couch, just for the night. She left a blanket folded at the end and turned off the lights. In the darkness, as she lay in bed, she listened for his breathing. Soft and even, just like it used to be when he napped in the car on long drives home from school. For the first time in 17 years, the house didn't feel empty. Neither did she. Elliot stood in front of the mirror, staring at a name tag. Tyler Haynes, volunteer. It was a small gesture. The community center had invited him back, this time under his real name. But it felt like trying on someone else's shoes. Too tight, too unfamiliar. I don't know who I'm supposed to be, he told Lauren that evening, the name tag resting on the counter between them. Elliot's who I was. Tyler's who I'm told I am. Lauren, folding towels at the table, paused. What if you're both? He looked up. You don't have to erase Elliot to be Tyler, she continued. They're both parts of you. One wasn't a lie, it was survival. He thought about that. How did you keep going? He asked quietly. She didn't answer at first. Then, I didn't. Not always. Some days I just kept breathing. That was enough. They went to Wallace Park that weekend. He stood under the same tree where he'd played as a child. Something flickered. The way the light hit the leaves, a faint echo of laughter. I used to climb that, he said suddenly, pointing to the low branch. Lauren smiled. You fell once, scraped both knees, screamed like it was the end of the world. He laughed, surprised at the sound coming from himself. Sounds like me. They sat on the bench, watching families go by. I want to remember, he said again. You will, she whispered. And even if you don't, I'll remember enough for both of us. He nodded, then took the name tag from his pocket. Tyler Haynes. He didn't put it on, but he didn't throw it away either. Summer arrived quietly in Portland. One Sunday, Lauren and Tyler took a day trip to the coast, Cannon Beach, just like they used to when he was little. She packed sandwiches. He drove. Neither said much on the way there, but it was the kind of silence that felt full, not empty. They walked the shore barefoot, the wind catching their hair, the sky silver with mist. At one point, Tyler picked up a stone, smooth, oval, ocean-washed, and turned it in his palm. You kept waiting, he said. Lauren nodded. Always. He offered her the stone. Then I guess this belongs to you. She smiled, slipped it into her jacket pocket without a word. Later, they sat on a driftwood log, watching the tide pull away. Tyler leaned against her shoulder, awkward at first, then natural. His voice was barely louder than the waves. I used to dream about this place, but I thought I made it up. You didn't, she said. You remembered. He closed his eyes. For the first time since they found each other, Lauren didn't feel the urge to ask him how he felt, what he wanted, or who he was becoming. She just sat with him, and for that moment, it was enough. A few weeks later, Lauren opened a new browser window and stared at the blank screen. Then she began to type. The Lost Years, a story of waiting, remembering, and becoming. It wasn't just for her. It was for other parents, still searching. For children, now grown, who lived in shadows not of their making. It was a place for grief, yes, but also for rebuilding. Tyler sat across the room, earbuds in, sketching in a notebook. He wasn't ready for therapy, not yet, but he'd started drawing again. Lauren noticed the figures were changing. Less gray, more color, more sky. Are you okay if I tell the story? She asked softly. He looked up. Ours? She nodded. He considered it, then smiled, a real one, wide and warm. Only if you end it with the truth. What's the truth? That we're still writing it. Outside, the wind lifted the curtain just enough to let the afternoon light spill in. Lauren added one more line to the draft before she saved it. Some reunions don't come with fanfare, some truths don't arrive in full, but if you look closely, hope has fingerprints. She clicked save and turned to her son. Ready for lunch? He nodded. Yeah, and after, maybe you could show me that old swing set from the picture. Lauren stood, tears soft in her eyes but no longer falling. Let's go. And together, they stepped into the sun. If you believe in storing stories that reveal hidden truths and celebrate the power of human connection, support our team by subscribing to this channel. Like the video to help it reach others and share it with friends and family who need to hear this. Comment below your thoughts, what moved you most, and let us know. Would you like to hear part 2? Every voice matters here.